focus on going through all sorts of different tunes, obviously woodpipe, solos, etc. We're just going to hone our focus on the MSR today, since it's such an important set for us as competitors, both solo and band players. And just to give you, maybe just to simplify it for you, because I think a lot of times, and I know when I was learning, a lot of people told me different things about how I should be emphasizing the music, about what you should be thinking about when you're playing, and you get all these ideas that land up just like clouding your whole head. And when you're playing the tune, you actually don't feel like you know what you're doing. So just to give you some basic blueprints, a lot of what I'm going to speak to you about today is what I learned from Bob Worrell. A couple of years ago, during our lovely lockdowns, I decided to use that time to get in touch with our friend Bob, and I had a few online lessons with him, quite a few actually. I think it was like over about a year. I was having a lesson every month, maybe two in some months as well. And he gave me a lot of direction, and so I'd just like to sort of share these things that he taught me with you today, along with some other things I've learned along the way playing in various bands. And the first thing I'm going to do to talk to you about musical interpretation, or specifically for the MSR, it's not going to be about music at all. And the kicker works. It's going to be about acting and theatre, because much like actors and directors who are trying to get a message across from a script, or maybe even writing the script, the way that they present their performance on the stage is very much an interpretation of that writing as well. So they use different elements to get this across. The way that they use their voice, their facial expressions, their movements, all of these things are contributing to the way that you, as a listener, understands the performance and the message that they're bringing across. And it's very much the same in music, and obviously with all music, but now we're going to make it very specific about pipe band music and the MSR. So if we think about what are these actors on stage doing, and I specifically actually I put this because this is us in the band. Yeah, this is when one guy's playing a hell of a good harmony there, maybe. Everyone else in the park was like, yeah, bro, you go. And this is us when we obviously playing a keyboard or something, maybe. Getting really deep. But moving along, so just some thoughts to move on from what I was talking about now and drawing this comparison in the introduction with actors, is that music, just like acting, is about storytelling as well. And you'll know that obviously, as pipers, our instrument and our tunes that we play have a lot of tradition. They carry some very powerful names that go back centuries. And it's not only bebop as well that has that tradition. So we need to bring through the storytelling. There are different characters, if you think about it as well. Like you yourself as a player, you're a character in a band or as a solo piper. And also each tune has its own feel. They have names of people as well, like Hugh Kennedy, Lord Alexander Kennedy. I'm just choosing the Kennedys today. But those are just some examples of the characters. Also with actors, they use different kinds of ornamentation. So what I'm talking about there is obviously the way they've got specific talents, like with dancing, with singing, with the way that they embellish their words. We do the same. And the biggest thing really goes is emotion that is conveyed. If you play a piece of music really well, when you stood at a funeral and you played Amazing Grace for people and they're all bawling their eyes out, you're conveying this emotion. And it's the same for us as competitors, not only for the people that are standing there on the outside of the fringe listening to us, but for the judges themselves as well. They're feeling an emotion based on the way that you're presenting this piece, and we want to make sure that's a good emotion, obviously. So how do we get there? So I want to start off talking about active listening. Who am I supposed to point to? Oh, there. Sorry, this is before I get to active listening. Yeah. So I just wanted to I just thought to myself and sort of try to unpack some elements of what are elements of musical interpretation. You guys might be able to add some more to this list, but a couple of things that I thought were, firstly, it's experience. Like I spoke about just now, when you first start out and you play, you don't have a lot of experience, and you rely on your tutors, you rely on people who are telling you, or judges maybe, how you should be playing. But as you go, and obviously I've been playing for a long time now, I've gained some experience. Instinct is also obviously a very important thing, but instinct, I think, goes a lot along with confidence. You have to have that confidence to follow through on your instinct, on the way you feel the piece should be presented. And musicality comes into that a lot with training as well. That's again part of the experience. Expression is obviously a big element of musical interpretation. First, we interpret the piece the way we listen to it, and then we express it the way we present it. So expression is something I'm going to focus on quite a lot today. And then obviously another big element, I think, of musical influence, and something I've brought on a lot, to develop like a way of presenting music. It's from influence from other styles of music as well, not necessarily always bagpipe music. Maybe this, I like to listen to metal, I listen to also classical music a lot, and these types of genres. And I find that I've learned a lot from these types of genres and listen to the way that they present their music as well. Basic things like phrasing, basic things like, crescendo elements, and all sorts of like how they convey this energy that makes it enjoyable to listen to. So, the first thing I'm going to unpack a little bit, and then the reference for this is I got this off, and I adapted it for typing. But I got this off of a website about active listening. Because I think that the process, I'm not going to stand here today and necessarily say this is exactly how you should play. The thing is you should be listening to good players and trying to replicate the way that they present. Right. So the first thing I thought is a skill that we should all have in order to interpret music and present it properly, is you should be able to listen, and we must listen actively. And Josh mentioned it in his presentation earlier as well. He spoke about active listening too. And I just thought I'd give you some key points. Then you might think, okay, well, I know what active is. I can sit and I listen and there it comes in my head, I know what's going on. But I thought this was quite valuable, just a couple of little pointers for how you can maybe refine that process for yourself, how you can get more out of your sessions of listening before you play. So this website recommends that you should listen to a piece of music 3 times. So maybe you're sitting and you're starting to think about what you're going to play for solos next season, or maybe you're just learning some new music and you want to play it well with the orthodox. You don't just stand there and bash tunes out because that's really not the right approach. Encouraging bad habits. Listen to the piece of music 3 times is what it recommends. And it also recommends this website that you should be listening with full focus. So this is obviously not driving in your car, stuck in traffic. Look, when I was driving through here on the highway, I was so angry actually. That's not a good space to be in with the way people down. I was crazy going 100 km an hour in the fast lane. I was like, what the hell are you doing? I wasn't really listening to my music properly. So that's obviously not a good space to be in. This is your special time for you to develop your understanding of the piece that you really want to play well. So you need to put that time aside. Make sure you have a comfortable environment. And another thing is you need to be academic about it. I remember when I was starting to learn to play, and I played Liam of Clarky was my partner here. And I know he used to always say for one season about our music and our media and MSR. He used to say, guys, you need to make this your study this year. You need to make this music honestly like an academic thing. As much as we know that it's a hobby, you'll get far more enjoyment in being that professional about it. So very quickly, just to go through a couple things, because I want to actually get onto the real part that stuff. Where does this thing pick up? There. Keep picking it like that. Okay, so this is what they suggest that you should listen to when you're listening the first time around. So you should be listening to elements of the melody and how that's constructed. And obviously from what Josh spoke about in his last session, I think you can take a lot from that, and that should be a lot of your thinking that goes into that first point today. You need to obviously, and I'm going to speak a lot about rhythm just now. Rhythm is extremely important, and I'll give you some guidelines as to what you need to be listening for when it comes to it. Because that's how the tune is often structured. You need to think about the form of the structure. For that, that's pretty simple. I mean, it's like a 4-part tune, whatever. Tempo, I'm going to focus on a little bit as well. Solo playing versus band playing as well. There's obviously differences that we have with those 2 elements of piping. The timbre, the harmony, the dynamics as well. Obviously, dynamics is valuable for drumming, but yeah. And then they also said you should ask yourselves these questions when you listen to the second time. So I think with these, you know, since you're being academic, write those down. I can share this with you if you wanted to. So then maybe just make a little note next to each of those things about what you picked up on. And then you listen again and you ask yourself these questions. Why did these elements stand out? Why are you listening now? Again, the second time you're digesting it. What is it that makes each of these elements unique? How is each of the elements used in the tune? That's something I'm going to focus on as well. Just now, can you determine their functions? Are any of these elements repeated? And can you determine the pattern? I think for the last one, again, it's obviously also quite, but we know quite well that there are definitely elements that are repeated in piping, like endings, for example. And yeah, that's basically the active listening that I wanted to focus on. The third round of active listening that they proposed, I didn't find was super relevant actually for pipe bands. With more about like sound production and things like that. So I don't know if you're obviously not focusing on that. But I would say for the third time, just confirm for yourself exactly the style that you can have in presented. Anyway, so getting to the MSR. So before I talk about interpretation, obviously there's a lot of things that back us up in order to be able to present a tune well. And we know full well, we can get nowhere without technique. There's really good books out there. We all should be working on exercises every now and then, like the workers book. And that's going to really help you to play and present a tune much better. I mean, you can't get a barrel from B, and then how are you going to play a tune with a barrel from B? Our pipe setup as well is a big thing, especially if you're obviously going into all. Actually, I was going to say only if you're going into solo playing. Actually, if you're in a band, you need to make sure your pipe setup is okay. You can't let your pipes go a week with like you saying, I really must change the tempo on that road. Or like my chanter tape is sliding all around. I'll change it tomorrow, and you never do that. You're shooting yourself in the foot and you're making it much harder for you to present properly. So that's obviously super important too. Tempo awareness and practicing with the metronome is so vital for us to be able to present music properly as well. And I'm going to speak about and give you guidelines for tempos too. But really, we should all be practicing it with the metronome. Even if you find it challenging to practice with the metronome, then you have to make it a super priority for yourself, because that's something that's really lacking. And this all brings us control in the end, and that's the biggest thing. When we get control in an MSR, is when we start winning, you start enjoying it, you start feeling it, and you actually convey this piece in a professional manner, if I can say that. So I'm going to cover each element of the MSR today. We're going to look at the march, the strathspey, and the reel. Some of this stuff, when I was putting this together, I wasn't quite sure who I was going to be presenting to and what levels, etc. So I'm starting from quite a basic space, so some of you are going to be like, well, why are you explaining to me what a march is? Why am I telling you that it's a tune for time? Well, I'll tell you why. Was because it was at a gathering, I remember, not long ago, and maybe 3 years ago, and I overheard some young players in the school band. I won't mention bands or names or anything like this, but I heard that they were talking about, why don't we play this thing, it was Kilworth Hills, as the march in the MSR, which is the 3/4 march. So clearly I need to specify that when we are, maybe if you're in town, that for your march in an MSR, that it has to be a march in 3/4 time. It's obviously specified on our prospectus as well. So that's our starting point. Obviously it's a 4-part march or 6-part march for some of the bigger guns out there. And then obviously you can play 2 parts. So tempo. So firstly for the march, and I'm going to be speaking from a band and a solo perspective today as well. But for our marches for a solo player, you're typically not going to play it as fast as you would be in the band. I would say that your max tempo, people might have other ideas, but I would really not be taking it much over 72 per minute for your marches, solo setting. Whereas with a band, maybe 72 is almost like your entry-level tempo. And you actually find that band will typically be playing around 76 beats per minute. Maybe, your grade 1 band will be pushing it up to 80. And maybe like 10 years ago, some bands were playing way too fast in my opinion and going even above that. Pretty crazy. But yeah, in any case, those are the tempos you need to be sitting around. Obviously, this is a conversation you need to, if you're in the band setting, you need to have with the drummers in your core as well. You need to obviously make sure that you both have settled on this is where we need to be working towards. Because you'll find that as a pipe core, you might be a little bit more able to vary your tempo, but a drum score is often written to have a much smaller ballpark that they need to be playing at. So you need to complement your drum score as well when you're playing. When you're using your tempo for your march. So for technique, I'm going to speak to you a little bit about what Bob told me. And I'm going to reference him quite a lot today. Because when I started having my lessons with Bob and the way that I was playing marches, he actually started me on YouTube. He asked me, have you played this tune before? I said, no. So he's like, great, that's the tune we're going to do. He didn't want me to play, he didn't want to teach me or refine music that I was working on. He wanted to actually start me from scratch. And some of the big things that came out from this were little habits that I had, things that I had built up. So the first one I want to tell you about is tuppence. I'm going to talk about tuppence a couple times today. But you find often in a march that you get a movement like you're going like that. And what I was doing was, you told like how we should play tuppence, it should say tuppence. But you find often that that little wee note that you're playing before the tuppence, you're not focusing on that. So you actually, well, what I was doing, you might be doing something different. I was cutting that thing too much and it wasn't allowing me to play a nice, open, expressive tuppence. So I was going like, maybe I'm over exaggerating, but you can see that note is way too short before. You can go. When you get to that point, you just open that note up a little bit more and it allows you to move your fingers in a relaxed way. It helps you to be open, it helps you to, not crush things. In March, we don't want to be crushed. And that's the big thing I want you to realize today, is that the way that you approach a march and a Strat Spanner reel are three totally completely different mindsets, the way you should be playing each tune. In a march, we are a little bit, Strat Spanner is like, we'll be very tight. We'll be very like, it's got to be like, I don't want to say crushed, but you've got to be like aggressive with the way you play. A march is a lot more open, it's a lot more free. And these things like tuppence, you need to be opening up. There was something else I wanted to mention about. Oh yes, another big thing, another big game changer for me was this. I've been taught that when you're playing doublings, that you should be playing doublings exactly the same, like on your bottom hand, your top hand, all your doublings should mirror each other, which is absolute crap. It's not the way that you should be doing it, especially in a march. And this was another big thing, and you just try it yourself, is that all your bottom hand doublings, B especially, B's and C's come up in the march a lot, like in the ending time. You'll have, often you'll be going, right? These sorts of things. You need to open up those doublings a lot more. And by open up, I don't mean lift your fingers higher. You need to be able to hear that note that's happening in between them. Shut up, not kind of running them into each other. And try it in your play. A big difference it's going to make to the way that you're presenting and the way that your clarity comes through. And the way that you're able to execute things that come after that, like burls and other things, you're going to find that you're not less tense. And that's because that's how we should be. That's how, according to what I learned from Robert, worked for me. Well, it's just like a little strategy that's going to help you to really free up and be able to present the music a lot more accurately. So those are two little elements of technique I want to mention to you for marches. So it's those tuppence and those bottom hand doublings. Don't crush them. Keep them open and you're going to find a lot more expression coming through in your playing. The next thing is endings. So just a little strategy, maybe some of you are doing this, maybe you're not. Like I said, this is meant to be presented from a very basic level to a high level. But for endings, what I would strongly recommend for any of you who are competing with the tune is that your endings is something you should be practicing, like, you know, almost as much as you're having run-throughs almost of your tune in a way, especially in the beginning. Because we know that endings come up each time. So the judge is sitting there and he hears you through, he's like, that's not quite right what he did there. But if it was just in like 1 2-bar phrase somewhere in the march, like a variation like it's gone. And he won't get to like listen again, or she won't get to listen again and say what exactly was going on. With your ending, if you make that bluff, you're doing it over and over again. And it's just coming up on your score sheet all the time. So please, yeah, that's something really focus on your endings. In a band, also with your core. Really make sure that your endings are solid. And it gives you a lot of confidence then when you're playing your endings well. Because you know that's like every time you resolve a part, like you're resolving it perfectly. So even like in the circle or when you're busy competing as a solo fighter, it takes a lot of your nerves away from that element. Something I forgot to say about tempo as well was when you're practicing too. You should not be practicing at your full tempo all the time. Old Mulhern, when he was here, what was his name? What's Ryan? John Mulhern. I remember hearing that what he also said, what he suggested was, what he does, is that when he's practicing his solo marches, he plays them a lot slower all the time. Most of his practicing is at a very low tempo because it's breeding this relaxed control. Not just like gunning it, like trying to just nail that tempo the whole time. Some of us playing, higher levels, playing marches 76, 80 beats per minute. You know what I'm talking about. You'll find it's a lot more valuable to practice slower. Little thing is a nice touch is when you're starting your solo marches, is not to just go in at full tempo. Generally, if you listen to top solo players or just for the guys, they'll ease into it. Like Cinerone is then you're hitting your tempo. It helps you not to run away with the tune when you know it. So just a little strategy useful to get to the margin solos. But another big thing we need to look at is that when we're in the band mode, the tune needs drive. And I've noticed this a lot playing in different pipe chords, that pipers in marches tend to want to like start slowing down a little bit. Especially when you're hitting like third and fourth parts, to like really get caught up there, and the drummers you're kind of losing the drummers. You need to be aware of that. I'm going to talk about a little strategy you can use to work on your drive in the third and fourth parts in particular, but that's something you need to be aware of. And finally, this thing of control comes up again. So now I told you about bomb, and now I'm going to talk to you about emphasis. So this is one of my creations. I don't know if you can speak for it, but a lot of us are told in the beginning that we need to focus on left foot emphasis when we're playing a march. So going like with Donald McLean's farewell to open, going dum ba dee da dum ba dee da dee dum ba da dee da dee da dee dum ba dee da dee, which is not allowing us to phrase properly. Because the phrase happens at the end of the second bar. It's called 2-bar phrasing for a reason. Whereas Bob's strategy, if he's been to your band, he's spoken to you about this. Some of you already know. You guys know exactly what I'm talking about. I wrote that left, right. You're probably like, what the hell does that mean? It just gives you little markers in the march that you need to be aiming for. And I keep talking about digging in there. That's like a term I've started adopting. I don't know if that's what I think Bob also said that. But in Donald McLean's farewell to Owen, he would then say you should rather go, instead of, I'll sing them both back to back. Instead of going dum ba dee da dum da dee da dee dum ba do dee dee a dee a dee dum ba dee a da do, rather dum ba dee da dum da dee a dee dum ba da dee a dee a dee dum ba dee a do. And what I'm saying is you're moving through in that second bar always, and not letting yourself get bogged down. That lets you move, gives you good momentum in the tune. It allows you to get to the phrase, and then you actually are phrasing as well at the end of that 2-bar phrase. You all understand what I'm saying? So the rhythm that you should have in your head ready then is it's just a simple tap. It's just this. And if you're getting that right, and you can apply that, like I said, I'm not going to go into detail got a whole bunch of different tunes here today. I'm literally just giving you a basic thing, a little basic strategy that you can use and apply to any mark that you play. And I think that you'll find that it will really help you. It will really be valuable. I've marked it out in the music. I've got the page also over here as well. So if you can see where it comes up with the sheet music as well. So it's beat 1, beat 2, then we're moving through here to that final beat of the bar. And you can see the music, the way it's written, it wants to be played like that. Yeah, it wants you to move through it. It doesn't want you to go see, that's all one beat grouping. So we should be moving, and that's where our emphasis is. That's an obvious phrasing note there. So you can go look at your music, go and write it in, draw little arrows. If you're confused, if you don't know where these beats are, you can WhatsApp it to me. I will gladly help you. I will gladly show you where all of these little things are, where the little digging notes or whatever you want to call them lie, and you make sure that you're presenting your tune in that way. You're going to find that it's going to really improve the way that you're playing. You're going to get a lot more enjoyment. And like I say, it makes it a lot easier to say, in the first part, be focusing on this. In the second part, this. In the third part, this. You're so flipping confused. Just apply this the whole way through your march. There's something else here. Oh, yes. And then the other thing is in the third and fourth parts, something that I learned along the way when I played for the University of Bedfordshire Pipe Band. Then the pipe major there spoke about, and it really helped in the third and fourth parts of the march. That's what I was talking about earlier with that slowing down business that some of us like to do when we get there. Is be conscious of the offbeat, and it comes with the metronome too. What's the third part of mechanical again, Klaus? Yeah, dumbade. So if you take the offbeat here now. Because what we're actually doing when we're slowing down is we're over-exaggerating and we're missing, we're late on those offbeats, and that's where we're falling behind. So, if you make sure that you practice like that with your offbeat, with your metronome on the offbeat, picking an offbeat, so double time, then you'll really find that you're going to get a lot more drive out of your music. So those are a couple of things you need to be conscious of for March. Josh, can we play that first video? I think we'll play the one called Marshall, I think. Just have a listen, and I'm going to try and show you that they're doing this. Another good exercise for you is to go and find your favorite grade 1 band and listen to the way that they present it, because I can tell you pretty much all of them are going to be playing their marches in some way. Get onto the stress play. So the stress play is a real issue for me. Overall, I think a lot of people sort of struggle with this, how we should be presenting this too. There's a lot of ideas that have been thrown around and ideas that have been told to you. I'm going to again try and make it easy for you with what Bob told me. So stress play is in common time, which means there's 4 beats a bar. The tempo we should be aiming at, because you're all going to be practicing this going hardcore now, is around 116 is a good tempo. So I'd say 114 to 120, really top bands playing 120 and above. In solos, yeah, not much lower than 114 really. Maybe if you're a novice player, maybe 112. But yeah, that's kind of your ballpark really for a Strat play. When you start out practicing and you're practicing slower, maybe like 110. The technique I want to speak about here is a specific one, and it comes up a lot in the Strat plays that you play as well. I'm not going to go into too much, but yeah, like I said earlier, your technique really needs to sharpen up when you're playing a Strat play now. It's a very different kind of mindset. I said to the band at band practice the other night, the other day, last week Saturday, we had a workshop we were working through MSR. And I said if the real was a person, and I'll speak about the real just now, the real is maybe a tipsy Irish fella, he's quite a nice, easygoing kind of guy. But a Strat play is a flippant, strict Scottish school teacher. They don't call flippant tuning. So you've got to make sure that you're presenting the tune in that way as well. And the big thing here that I'm going to talk about is just I call them Strat play GBs. You might have your own other name. And the big thing I learned from Bob with this thing was I was way too open on him. I had always worked on being like making sure that you're hearing it coming through, and it was a lot more of actually like a march way of playing, whereas you really need to rip these things. And he stopped me, Bob, over the session we were having, and he said, we just need to focus on those things. And he just started telling me the story. And he said to me, and I thought, what's he going on about here? I thought we were working on music. But he started saying to me, so Angus, last year my lawnmower was giving me problems. So I decided that I needed to get a new lawnmower. So he says to me that he went and he bought himself a Honda lawnmower, because that thing never fails. Every time he starts that thing up, it's powerful. He goes, yeah, and it starts every time. And he said to me, that's how you need to be playing these things in your Strat play. Let's be I missed that one. Ripping them out, eh? And the more you work at it, the more you find this, that you're able to do this in your Strat play. You're going to find that you're going to have a lot more drive. Because I think people get stuck in a Strat play. I hear people playing, they're slowing down while they're playing. And as you're attacking these things with the same blueprint I'm going to give you, you're going to find that you're going to be presenting this music in a much more enjoyable and driving fashion. So this running debate, excuse me for my terrible puns, there's a whole debate obviously about how we should be playing our runs in our Strat plays as well, which is a separate element of technique I want to talk about. So as far as I'm concerned, who am I to tell you how you should play your runs? It's very much a stylistic thing. There's different ways that people present it. If you listen to Simon Fraser, I think it was in 2009, when they're playing this track, they're totally open. These kinds of runs. Whereas other people will be playing them maybe with a little bit more emphasis. Which is how we play now. That kind of thing. Moving through them instead of. Really, what I'm going to say to you is either one of those is actually fine. But the biggest thing is not to be flipping them. We don't want to be overly, tense in the way that we play. Running through them. Because that's going to lead to and breed more tension in your playing and the way you present the tune, and it's going to be better. So just make sure that you practice your runs, that you have some exercise in there that's allowing you to be consistent in the way that you're playing them, whatever style that you're doing. Don't crush them. And the last thing that was also me talking about precision, making sure that you're being precise in the way that you're presenting your technique. Highland dances, the reason why that's up there is remember that Strat plays are often played for Highland dances. And you can go and watch videos of dancers dancing to Strat plays, and you can see in the way that they move that it really complements the music that we play, or that those parties are playing. you need to make sure that the way that you're playing your strat play will complement the dances and the moves that they do as well. If you know a dancer, play for them. I had a bit of experience playing for some dancers, and I actually found that it really also changed the way that I was presenting my tune, because I could see visually like how a strat play works and the way that they're moving up and down. So I think that that's another big thing you can draw from strat play. When it comes to expression, their old school vibe was this whole one bar phrasing thing, and it was this whole thing of like hard, weak, medium, weak the whole way through, which I really don't believe in. I find that also gets you bogged down. It's very much like the left foot pulsing in a march. You're not allowing yourself to phrase the music properly. You need to be thinking in 2-bar phrases, and what Bob said is very similar to how he approaches the march, and I'll tap you through it this now. And you see with Bob's thing, the thing we're always digging in on is that, like in the march, it's that second beat, right? Not the left. Whereas in a strat play, we're going moving to that phrase, hey? Not hard, weak, medium, weak through that. You're not going to be phrasing correctly. And you're actually just like breaking the piece up unnecessarily. Always move to the ends of your 2-bar phrases. It's not to Lorenzo Tool. They were having a major issue at some stage with their strat plays, the way they were being judged, and what they said and what they did is they didn't go even as complicated as well. As far as I'm aware, what they did is they just focused on the third piece. So going like and giving yourself that anchor. It's all about giving yourself these anchors as you play. That's going to make you match the form and the style. And so long as you're doing that, you should be good. It will take a bit of practice. It's going to feel weird in some places because you've obviously got habits that are growing. But you need to work on that. I think you need to buy either one of those blueprints, and you're going to find that you're going to be enjoying your music a lot more. And 2 little key points I want you to think about when it comes to strat play playing. These words I want you to have in your head. You must say, am I driving the tune? Not slowing down. Make sure that you're not open. There's no space in the strat play for really open play. It's not that style. You need to make sure that you're actually quite sharp in the way that you do it. And you have to play with authority as well. Okay. Just to show you again in the music. So there we go. Really dig in on this thing at the end. There. Dig in. You're going to find that your music's going to be yours as well. Try and do this for your judges at solos, and you're going to see what's going to happen, I think. Can we just watch this first video, Josh? Listen to more of these network bands doing it. You're going to see everyone's doing it. So we should also be doing it. Makes your life so much easier. We'll move to the reels now, I think. Okay, then when we come into our reel. Now this is also like a real bugbear for me. The way that people exit the reel, exit the strat play and come into the reel. The real problem we actually need to address in the country reel. But reels are written in split column 5. The tempo is very similar to a march. So you might find that your reel will be a little bit faster than your march. Often when we play in solos, obviously our reel and crash play altogether, and not to start March, but I would recommend that you would be playing at about 76 max in your solos, maybe 76 I would say, depending on the reel you're playing. And our tempos for band would be up to about 80, maybe you're pushing a bit above that if you like, maybe in a grade 2 band or some grade 3 bands, but definitely I would say, yeah, if you're looking at about in the band, also 76 as a max, 78. When you break into the reel, we obviously hopefully all aware that there's 2 different ways that you can go about doing that. So we can have a straight break right after the scratch break, or we have that little pause before we go into the reel. For me, I find that it's a lot simpler for us to go straight into the reel, especially in a band setting, because there's always one person who's nervous or whatever and doesn't pause and rushes into the reel, and you're setting yourself up for problems in your core. That's at least my opinion. But yeah, so I would recommend going straight in from your scratch break to the reel. But the biggest thing that I want you to get into your head today about reel playing is that you just need to relax. Like I said to you earlier, march, scratch play, and reel are 3 different kinds of tunes that have 3 completely different styles. And you know what happens is that we played the scratch play and we've been like really sharp in our like technique and everything. And as we hit that reel, we don't change. And then people are letting up playing reels. It's too tight, man. You need to relax. It's you've got to open up. And this was the thing that also Bob addressed with me. I mean, I'd like to think I wasn't like overly super tight like I sang it for you now. But again, it's very simple little strategies. So it's 3 things in technique I'm going to talk about. You need to be casual, you need to free up, you need to let the music flow. Reels are super chilled, guys. Like super chilled. You need to think about your tuckums and your bottom hand W's. Literally just these 2 things, like in that Thompson's Dirk that I was singing now. See, I'm not going. Not the style. That's you bringing scratch play style into a reel. You've got to relax. See how open those doublings are? It's a pop of me too. Right? Those 2 things, because that comes up a lot in reels. And the last thing is this thing, close the door, whatever mnemonic device you want to use for it, because these things come up so many places in reels that we play. And again, people, you need to relax. You can't be too tight. And that's kind of more like 6/8 play, okay? You've got to make sure when you get there, say close the door. Close the door, close the door. Right? And I think you'll find that that will really help you as well in the way that you present this. That's what makes a reel really special, is that it contrasts with the scratch play. So you need to put that scratch play behind you guys. So really think about it. Go and listen to some players. You analyze yourself. Listen to recordings of yourself. And say, am I? Yes. And I think that you'll find that most of us are.
Because you're the one who created.
So listen to solo players. There's actually there's something I can really recommend. I'll send it in an email to all of you. I think we have all the email addresses and stuff, so we'll send it out. There's a couple of recordings of some top partners, John D. Burgess and people like that. But you need to listen to the way that they play this reel, and you'll be like, wow. There's actually a lot of scope for opening up.
Skip the section session. Just combine it with the drum setup session.
Although it's written off. So take that, yeah, take that with you. That's a big thing. Again, when it comes to expression of the business that with masters, don't get too bogged down in real and put up with the box. Then you can do his emphasis like whatever it works as well. But for now, I would say before you even start looking at that, just focus on relaxing and feedback. It's very nice the idiom anyway if you do apply it. And again, your offbeat pulse can really help you in the third and fourth part now as well. Making sure that you're hitting those offbeats, and again, you're not going to be dragging. But really, keep your fingers super light, eh? Got to be so chilled when you hit that. You can just listen to a video here of Simon Fraser. Thanks, Josh. I think they really pull it off nicely. This is a very relaxed style here. Then what I was pointing out now, all those tuckums and their GDEs are relaxed, so relaxed. Thanks a lot. I hope that that's brought some sort of like, food for thought for you with the way that you play and present your MSRs. I think you'll find that if you apply a little bit of those like movements, that it's really going to work for you. But then, yeah. Cool. But I think the big point I'm making is that we don't realize that the reels in South Africa in particular are way too high. Yeah. So I agree it's got to be balanced, but I think a lot of focus on really good with that.
Yeah, okay, that something that's very told me. If you're listening out for it, you're immediately. But if you're not listening out for it, you don't know if you will also unsettle and it's exactly the case.
Sure, yeah, that's definitely. Oh, that's the big thing. Anybody else? Cool, thanks a lot, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day.